welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, and welcome to this very special sleep story, one that has been crafted with great care and tenderness, designed entirely to help you slow down, soften, and drift into the most peaceful, restful sleep you have had in a long time. Tonight is not a night for rushing. Tonight is not a night for thinking about tomorrow, for replaying the events of the day, or for holding tightly to any of the small worries that may have followed you here. Tonight, all of that is allowed to gently dissolve, the way mist dissolves over a still lake just as the morning light arrives, slowly and without effort, simply fading into something softer and quieter, until there is nothing left but calm wherever you are right now. Whether you are lying in your bed with the covers pulled close, resting on a couch with a blanket draped across your shoulders, or simply finding the most comfortable position your body can settle into, I want you to know that this space is yours completely. You do not need to do anything. You do not need to remember anything. You do not need to hold on. All you need to do tonight is listen, breathe, and let yourself be carried gently forward by the words and the quiet wonder they bring. So let us begin by settling in together. Take one slow breath in through your nose, drawing the air in deeply, feeling your chest and your belly rise. And then let it out through your mouth in one long, unhurried exhale, as though you are releasing everything the day has placed on your shoulders. Do that once more if you like, breathing in slowly, holding the air for just a moment at the top, and then breathing out, letting the tension in your jaw soften, letting your shoulders drop away from your ears, letting your hands uncurl and rest open and loose at your sides. Good. With each breath that follows, you may notice that your body feels just a little heavier, a little more settled, a little more supported by whatever surface is beneath you right now. And that is exactly right, because your body knows how to rest. It has always known. And tonight, we are simply going to let it remember. This gentle bedtime story is going to take you somewhere extraordinary tonight, somewhere that is unlike any place you have ever been before, and yet somewhere that, in the quietest part of you, may feel strangely familiar, the way a dream sometimes feels like a place you have visited long ago and nearly forgotten. We are going to travel together into the deep, silent beauty of space, not the loud and dramatic space of rockets and alarms and flashing lights, but the other kind of space, the vast, velvety, endlessly patient kind, the kind that has existed long before any of us arrived and will continue long after, steady and unhurried, and full of a peace that has no name. And at the heart of this calming narration is one of the most quietly astonishing ideas in all of science: the light year, a unit of measurement so enormous, so breathtaking in its scale, that the human mind cannot truly hold it all at once. And that is perfectly all right, because tonight we are not going to try to hold it. We are simply going to float inside it, the way a single feather floats inside a cathedral, small and still and perfectly at ease, within something immeasurably vast. A light year, in the simplest and softest of terms, is the distance that light travels in one full year, one complete turning of the earth around the sun, one full cycle of seasons and months, and quiet nights just like this one. And in that single year, light travels approximately 9.5 trillion kilometers, a number so large it dissolves into something almost dreamlike the moment you try to picture it, which means that rather than picturing it as a number, we are going to feel it tonight. We are going to drift through it together, one slow and soothing breath at a time. So close your eyes if they are not already closed, and allow this relaxing story to become the only thing your mind is following right now, like a single lantern moving slowly through a dark and peaceful forest, guiding you gently forward without hurry, without destination, without anything asked of you at all. The universe is waiting, soft and still and endlessly welcoming. And tonight, for as long as you need, it is entirely yours. Imagine now that the walls around you have softened, that the ceiling above you has opened like a slow exhale, and that where there was once a room, there is now only the most breathtaking, boundless, perfectly silent darkness you have ever rested inside. Not a frightening darkness, not an empty or lonely one, but the kind of darkness that feels like a warm and gentle hand placed softly over your eyes, asking nothing of you except that you stay still and let yourself be held by it. This is the darkness of deep space, and it is one of the most peaceful environments in the entire universe, a place where there is no wind, no noise, no urgency, no clock ticking on a wall, no notifications, no obligations, only an infinite and velvet stillness that stretches in every direction as far as the imagination can reach, and then continues, quietly, even further beyond that, and moving through this stillness right now, flowing through the dark in a long and luminous and endlessly patient stream, is light, not the sharp or startling light of a lamp switched on too quickly, but the soft and ancient and steady light of distant stars, traveling at precisely 299,792 kilometers every single second, which is to say that in the time it takes you to draw one slow and restful breath in and let it out again, light has already traveled nearly 600,000 kilometers, a distance so generous, so quietly staggering, that rather than trying to measure it, you might simply allow it to wash over you like warm water, like the feeling of sinking just a little deeper into your pillow, like the sensation of the day finally letting go of you. The speed of light is one of the great constants of the universe, which means that no matter where in the cosmos you find yourself drifting tonight, no matter how far from home this calming narration carries you, light will always be moving at exactly the same steady, unhurried, reliable pace. And there is something deeply soothing about that constancy, something that feels almost like a promise. The way the sound of rain on a roof is always the same, the way the tide always returns, the way your breath, if you let it, will always find its own rhythm without you having to think about it at all. Light, you see, does not rush. It does not second-guess itself. It does not stop to wonder whether it is going in the right direction. It simply moves smoothly and continuously through the darkness, carrying with it the gentle image of whatever star or world or quiet corner of the cosmos gave it life, and it carries that image patiently across distances that would take a human being millions of years to cross on foot, delivering it softly, like a letter that has been traveling for longer than than human civilization has existed, arriving finally at your eyes, at this moment, as a tiny point of light in a night sky. When you look up at a star on a clear and quiet evening, the light that reaches you has been traveling for years, sometimes for centuries, sometimes for thousands or even millions of years, which means that what you are seeing is not the star as it is right now, but the star as it was, a portrait of the past delivered gently to the present. And this is one of the most softly extraordinary facts about the universe, that every time you look at the night sky, you are looking back through time, watching ancient light complete a journey of unimaginable length, finally coming to rest in this single peaceful moment in your eyes on a quiet night. As you drift closer and closer toward sleep, the light from our own sun, that warm and familiar presence that marks the rhythm of your days, takes approximately 8 minutes and 20 seconds to travel from the sun's surface to the earth, which means that the sunlight that warmed your skin today, that filtered through a window, that lay in soft rectangles across your floor, left the sun before you had finished your last full breath 8 minutes prior, and was already on its way to you before you even thought to notice it. Breathe in now, slowly, and breathe out, and let that image settle gently into your mind. The way light settles into a quiet room in the late afternoon, golden and unhurried, filling the space between things without disturbing anything. You are drifting now, softly and steadily, further into this gentle bedtime story, further into the slow and soothing wonder of a universe that has been shining its light toward you for longer than you can imagine. And all you need to do is rest and receive it, and let the dark carry you forward. You are drifting now, softly and without effort, the way a single leaf drifts down from a tall tree on a windless autumn afternoon, turning slowly, unhurried, with nowhere it needs to be, and nothing it needs to become. And around you, in every direction, the darkness of space continues to unfold in its endlessly patient and velvet way, not pressing in on you, not demanding anything of you, simply being there, the way a deep and restful sleep is simply there when the body finally allows itself to surrender to it. And as you float in this perfect stillness, you begin to notice something that feels almost like warmth, a faint and golden presence somewhere in the distance ahead of you, steady and ancient and familiar even from here, even from this far away. And you understand without needing to think about it that what you are sensing is the sun, your sun, the same sun that has been rising and setting over your life for as long as you can remember, now seen from the outside, from the quiet of space, glowing with a soft and continuous light that spreads outward in all directions like the slow opening of an enormous and gentle flower. From where you are drifting now, you are roughly at the edge of what astronomers call the inner solar system, and the distances here, while enormous by any measure a human being might use on the surface of the Earth, are described not in light years, but in something smaller and equally beautiful, something called light minutes, which is simply the distance that light travels in 1 minute, approximately 18 million kilometers. And the way these light minutes arrange themselves across the solar system is one of the most quietly meditative facts in all of astronomy, because they remind you that even within our own small corner of the universe, the distances are so vast and so serene that light itself, moving at its steady and unimaginable pace, still needs many minutes to cross from one world to the next. Mercury, the smallest and innermost planet, the one that races around the sun in just 88 days, sits on average about 3 light minutes from the sun, which means that the light leaving the sun's surface right now will take approximately 3 minutes to reach Mercury's gray and cratered face, washing over its ancient ridges and silent plains in a blaze of unfiltered sunshine, twice as bright as anything we experience on Earth. And yet, Mercury itself is utterly still, utterly silent, with no atmosphere to carry sound, no wind to stir the dust, no ocean to catch the light and scatter it into 1,000 gentle reflections, just stone and shadow, and the slow turning of a world that has been moving in its quiet orbit for 4.5 billion years. Venus, wrapped in its thick and golden clouds, sits a little further still, roughly 6 light minutes from the sun on average, and from your drifting vantage point in the soft dark of space, it glows more brightly than anything else in the night sky after the moon. A creamy and luminous point of light that has been called the evening star and the morning star by human beings across every culture and every era of history. A planet that looks from a distance like the most peaceful and beautiful thing imaginable, serene and glowing, and perfectly round, drifting in its slow and graceful orbit with an unhurried elegance that feels entirely in keeping with this relaxing story, with this gentle night, with the slow and soothing rhythm of your own breathing right now, in and out, soft and steady, your body a little heavier with every exhale, your thoughts a little quieter, a little more willing to let go. And then there is Earth itself, your home, sitting at an average of 8 light minutes and 20 seconds from the sun, a distance that astronomers sometimes call 1 astronomical unit, a measurement that serves as the base unit for all the distances within our solar system, the gentle yardstick against which all the other planets are measured. And from space, your world looks impossibly beautiful, a soft blue sphere wrapped in white cloud, turning slowly in the dark with a kind of quiet dignity that makes the heart feel full in a way that is very difficult to describe, but very easy to simply feel, especially on a night like this one, when you are still and resting and open to the kind of wonder that only comes when the noise of ordinary life has finally grown quiet enough to let it through. Beyond Earth, further into the cool and darkening outer reaches of the solar system, the light minutes continue to stretch and expand. Mars at about 12.5 light minutes, Jupiter at around 43, Saturn at nearly an hour and a half of light travel away. Each planet a little further, each one a little quieter, each one a little more deeply resting in the vast and patient arms of space, just as you are resting now, just as your body is settling and your breath is slowing, and the soft darkness of this night is gathering you gently in. You are still drifting, beautifully and completely at ease, and the sun behind you has grown a little smaller now, a little more distant, its light still reaching you faithfully and without interruption, but softer now, the way the light in a room grows softer when you move further from the lamp, not disappearing, not abandoning you, simply becoming more gentle, more diffuse, spreading itself across a greater expanse of darkness with the same quiet generosity it has always carried. And ahead of you, the solar system continues to open outward like the pages of a very old and very beautiful book, each page a little quieter than the last, each one a little more still, a little more deeply settled into the enormous and unhurried peace that defines this outer region of space where the planets are fewer and further between, and the silence between them is so complete and so profound that it feels less like the absence of sound and more like the presence of something else entirely, something vast and calm and deeply restful. The kind of stillness that your body has been searching for all day without knowing quite what to call it. Saturn comes into view now, or rather the soft idea of Saturn drifts across your awareness the way a dream image drifts, not sharp or sudden, but gradual and luminous, its rings catching the distant sunlight and scattering it in pale golden arcs that curve and tilt with an elegance so unhurried and so perfect that they seem less like a physical structure and more like a long and soothing exhale that the planet has been breathing outward for billions of years. And Saturn sits at roughly 1.5 light hours from the sun, which means that the light warming those pale and icy rings right now left the sun's surface an hour and a half ago, traveling all that time through the silent dark before arriving here, at this ringed and patient world, still moving at its same steady pace, still carrying its gentle cargo of warmth and illumination across a distance of approximately 1.3 billion kilometers, a number that the mind releases rather than holds, letting it dissolve into the simple feeling of how far, how beautifully and peacefully far beyond Saturn, Uranus drifts in its slow and tilted orbit at roughly 2.75 light hours from the sun, a pale blue-green world that rotates on its side, as though it has simply decided to rest in a different way from all the other planets, tilted at nearly 90 degrees, so that its poles take turns facing the sun across seasons that each last decades. And there is something about that unhurried, sideways turning that feels almost companionable on a night like this, as though even the planets find their own particular way of settling in, their own posture of rest, their own quiet arrangement with the darkness that surrounds them. Neptune, the furthest of the 8 planets, the deep blue and windswept world at the very edge of the planetary solar system, sits at approximately 4 light hours from the sun, which means that sunlight takes 4 full hours to reach it, and by the time it arrives, it is so faint and so softened by distance that Neptune's surface receives roughly 900 times less sunlight than the Earth does, bathing that distant world in a perpetual blue twilight that feels, from here, like the most restful kind of light imaginable, the light of very late evening when the sky has not yet gone fully dark, but everything has slowed and softened, and the edges of the world have grown beautifully indistinct. And beyond Neptune, beyond the last of the 8 planets, the solar system does not simply end, but continues outward in a much quieter and more diffuse way. through a vast and sparsely populated region called the Oort cloud, a distant spherical shell of icy bodies and ancient frozen debris that surrounds the solar system at distances ranging from roughly 2,000 to as many as 100,000 astronomical units from the Sun, so far from the warmth and light at the center that the Sun itself would appear from there as nothing more than an exceptionally bright star, indistinguishable to the naked eye from the thousands of other stars scattered across the darkness. And the light travel time across the Oort cloud stretches not into hours, but into weeks and months, a scale of distance so serene and so incomprehensible that the only appropriate response to it is the one your body is already making right now: the slow releasing of breath, the softening of every muscle, the gentle and complete surrender to the fact that the universe is so much larger and so much more quietly magnificent than the small and busy world of your daily life, and that within that magnificence you are held and safe and invited always to simply rest. You have left the solar system behind now, and the leaving was so gentle, so gradual, so perfectly unhurried that you may not have noticed the exact moment it happened, the way you do not notice the exact moment you cross from wakefulness into the first soft layer of sleep, that beautiful borderland where thoughts begin to lose their edges and the body grows heavy and the world outside your window becomes very distant and very unimportant. And that is exactly where you are now, in a kind of cosmic borderland, drifting through the thin and ancient silence of interstellar space, the space between the stars, a region so vast and so profoundly still that the word silence does not quite do it justice, because silence on Earth still carries within it the faint possibility of sound, the distant hum of a city, the settling of a house at night, the soft movement of your own breathing. But the silence of interstellar space is something different, something more complete, a silence that has never been interrupted, that has existed since long before the Earth was formed, a silence so deep and so old that resting inside it feels like the most natural thing in the universe, which, in a very real sense, it is. The distance from our sun to the nearest star, a small and quietly glowing red dwarf called Proxima Centauri, is approximately 4.24 light years. And this is the first true light year of your journey tonight, the first time in this gentle bedtime story that the word light year moves from being an abstract concept to being something you are actually drifting through, something you are inside of, and the experience of it is not overwhelming or vertiginous, but rather the opposite, because a light year, when you are floating within one rather than trying to measure it from the outside, feels less like a distance and more like a kind of duration, a long and soothing stretch of space-time that asks nothing of you except that you continue to exist within it, breathing slowly, resting deeply, letting the kilometers dissolve into something that is less number and more feeling. Proxima Centauri is the closest star to our sun, and yet, even at 4.24 light years away, it is so distant that if you were traveling in the fastest spacecraft ever built by human hands, it would take you approximately 73,000 years to reach it. 73,000 years of drifting through this same quiet dark, this same velvet and patient emptiness. And rather than feeling daunting, that number tonight feels strangely comforting, because it means that the universe is in absolutely no hurry, that it has been here for an almost unimaginable span of time, and will continue to be here long after every clock has stopped, and that your own small and precious life, with all its details and its textures and its quiet beauties, exists within that unhurried enormity, like a single soft note held in the middle of a very long and very peaceful piece of music. Proxima Centauri itself is a red dwarf star, which means it burns cooler and more slowly than our own sun, its surface glowing not with the bright white gold of solar light, but with a deeper, redder, more ember-like warmth, and it is expected to continue burning steadily for approximately 4 trillion years, which is roughly 300 times longer than the current age of the universe, so that in any meaningful sense, Proxima Centauri is a star that is barely getting started, a star that will still be quietly glowing long after every other star we can currently see in the night sky has cooled and faded. And there is something about that extraordinary longevity, that patient and unrushed existence, that feels deeply aligned with the mood of this night, with the slow rhythm of your breathing right now, with the way your body is settling more completely, with every passing moment into the rest it has been waiting all day to find. Orbiting Proxima Centauri, there is a planet called Proxima Centauri B, roughly the same size as Earth, sitting within what astronomers call the habitable zone, the region around a star where liquid water could exist on a surface, and whether or not that world carries any form of life within its quiet and unknown landscapes. The simple fact of its existence, a world orbiting the star nearest to our own, drifting in its slow ellipse in the deep and starlit dark, adds one more layer of soft wonder to this calming narration, one more gentle reminder that the universe is full of worlds, full of quiet places drifting in the dark, each one moving in its own steady orbit, each one held by gravity and starlight, and the same ancient forces that hold you now, here, in this moment, heavy and warm, and completely at rest. You are drifting now in the warm and ember-like glow of Proxima Centauri, that small and ancient red star burning its patient and unhurried fire just ahead of you, and its light, though cooler and redder than the sunlight you grew up beneath, falls across you with a gentleness that feels almost deliberate, almost tender, the way candlelight falls across a room late at night when everything has quieted, and the only sound is your own breathing, and perhaps the faint and distant settling of the world outside, and you allow yourself to simply rest here for a moment, suspended in the soft red warmth of the nearest star beyond your own sun, feeling the extraordinary privilege of being, even in imagination, even in the beautiful space between wakefulness and sleep, this far from home, this deep inside the silence of the cosmos, this completely and utterly at peace. But Proxima Centauri, for all its solitary appearance in the night sky as seen from Earth, is not entirely alone out here in the dark, because approximately 0.2 light years further away, which is still an enormous distance by any human measure, but is, on the scale of interstellar space, something closer to a neighborly proximity. Two more stars drift together in a slow and graceful gravitational embrace, and these are Alpha Centauri A and Alpha Centauri B, the two brightest members of the Alpha Centauri system, a binary pair that orbit each other over a period of approximately 79 years, turning slowly around their shared center of gravity, the way two dancers might turn around each other in a very slow and very elegant waltz that has been continuing without pause for longer than our entire solar system has existed in its current form. Alpha Centauri A is very similar to our own sun, just slightly larger and slightly brighter, burning with a warm yellow-white light that would feel almost familiar if you were standing on a world that orbited it. And Alpha Centauri B is a little smaller and a little cooler, glowing with a deeper orange warmth. And together they form a pair that from Earth appears as a single bright point of light in the southern sky, the third brightest star visible to the naked eye, a soft and steady presence that human beings have been looking up at for tens of thousands of years, without knowing that it was in fact two stars, two separate suns slowly circling each other across an average distance of roughly 23 astronomical units, slightly greater than the distance between our Sun and Uranus. And there is something about that image, two stars in a slow and patient orbit around each other, that feels deeply calming, deeply reassuring, as though the universe is demonstrating once again that even at these vast and silent scales, things move in gentle and predictable rhythms. Nothing sudden, nothing sharp, only the long, slow turning of gravity and light. The entire Alpha Centauri system, all three stars, Proxima, Alpha A, and Alpha B, sits at an average distance of approximately 4.37 light-years from our Sun, making it the closest stellar system to our own, our nearest neighbors in the immense and quiet neighborhood of the Milky Way galaxy. And the fact that even our nearest neighbors are more than 4 light-years away, more than 40 trillion kilometers of dark and silent space separating us from the next cluster of sunlight, gives you some sense of how extraordinarily spaced out the stars truly are, how much of the universe is not star or planet or cloud of gas, but simply this, simply the dark, simply the peaceful and unbroken emptiness through which light travels for years and years before finding anything at all to illuminate. As you drift gently away from the Alpha Centauri system now, leaving its triple warmth behind you and moving outward again into the deeper dark, you might carry with you the image of those two stars turning slowly around each other, Alpha A and Alpha B, their light mingling at the edges, the way the thoughts of a deeply resting mind mingle and soften, and gradually become indistinguishable from the quiet of sleep itself. And your breathing continues to slow, your body continues to grow heavier, and the stars around you are becoming more numerous now as you drift further from home and deeper into the spiral arm of the galaxy that has always been your address in the cosmos, each star a sun in its own right, each one burning quietly and patiently in the dark, each one separated from its neighbors by these same immense and soothing distances, all of them held together by the slow and ancient and perfectly reliable force of gravity, the same force that is holding you right now, pressing you gently and firmly into the surface beneath you, keeping you grounded, keeping you still, keeping you safe inside this long and restful night. You are moving now with the easy and effortless grace of something that has completely surrendered to the current carrying it. No resistance, no effort, no sense of needing to arrive anywhere at any particular time, simply drifting outward through the soft and star-scattered darkness of the Orion arm, the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy that has been your home since the very first moments of the solar system's formation. And the stars around you are growing slowly more numerous as you drift, each one a quiet sun burning in its own private corner of the dark, each one surrounded by its own envelope of space and silence, and ahead of you, brighter than anything else in this region of the sky, burning with a cool and brilliant blue-white light that is steady and clear, and somehow deeply restful in the way that very pure and very simple things are always restful, is Sirius, the brightest star in the entire night sky, as seen from Earth, a star that human beings across every culture and every era have watched and named and navigated by and woven into their stories. For as long as there have been human eyes to look upward into the dark, Sirius sits at a distance of approximately 8.6 light years from our sun, which means that the light reaching your eyes from Sirius on any clear night left that star 8 years and 7 months ago, traveling all that time through the unbroken silence of interstellar space, passing through regions of the galaxy where no planet orbits and no atmosphere scatters it, simply moving at its constant and faithful pace through the dark until it arrives, still sharp, still bright, still carrying within it the precise and undiminished information of what Sirius looked like 8.5 years in the past. And there is something in that fact that invites a kind of gentle wonder. The idea that the light you see tonight is a message written 8.5 years ago, a letter from a distant star that has been traveling toward you patiently and continuously since long before this particular night began, arriving now at exactly this moment, as if it had always known you would be here to receive it. Sirius is what astronomers classify as an A-type main sequence star, which means it burns significantly hotter and more intensely than our own sun, its surface temperature reaching approximately 10,000 degrees Celsius compared to our sun's roughly 5,500. And it is about twice the mass of our sun and approximately 71 times more luminous, meaning that if you were to replace our sun with Sirius at the same distance, the daylight on Earth would be blinding and the warmth overwhelming. But from 8.6 light years away, all of that fierce and brilliant energy is softened by distance into something quiet and beautiful, a single point of blue-white steadiness in the night sky, the way a very bright lamp in a very large and very dark room becomes, from the far side of that room, simply a soft and reassuring glow. Sirius is also part of a binary system, accompanied by a small and extraordinarily dense companion star known as Sirius B, a white dwarf, which is the remnant of a star that was once much larger and more luminous than Sirius itself, but has long since exhausted its fuel and collapsed inward to roughly the size of the Earth, while retaining a mass slightly greater than our Sun, so that a single teaspoon of its material would weigh several tons. And Sirius B orbits its brilliant companion over a period of approximately 50 years, a slow and quiet circuit through the dark that has been continuing long before any human civilization began to look upward and wonder at the lights in the sky above them. As you drift in the cool blue-white glow of Sirius now, you might allow your awareness to settle very gently on the rhythm of your own breathing, noticing how each inhale arrives softly and each exhale carries something away with it, some small remaining tension, some last fragment of the day's weight. And as you breathe out, you can feel yourself sinking just a little more deeply into the surface beneath you, your body growing quieter and heavier and more completely at rest. And the stars around you continue to burn in their patient and widely spaced arrangement, each one separated from the next by these same magnificent and soothing distances, each one sending its light outward in all directions across the years and the decades and the centuries, filling the dark with a slow and silent conversation that has been going on for longer than the Earth has existed. A conversation that asks nothing of you, that requires nothing from you, that simply continues softly and endlessly all around you as you rest. You're drifting still, beautifully and completely without effort. And the blue-white glow of Sirius has softened behind you now the way all lights soften when you move gently away from them, fading not with any abruptness, but with the same slow and patient grace with which the sky fades after sunset. One shade at a time, one quiet degree at a time, until what was bright becomes gentle, and what was gentle becomes simply part of the surrounding dark. And ahead of you now, warming the black of space with a color that is entirely different from the cool brilliance of Sirius, entirely different from the steady yellow-white of our own sun, is a star that glows with a deep and amber-orange light, rich and ancient, and somehow deeply comforting. The color of firelight seen through a frosted window on a cold evening, the color of the last light of autumn, the color of something that has been burning for a very long time and has settled into its warmth, the way a person settles into a chair they have sat in for many years, completely at home within it, completely unhurried, completely and profoundly at rest. This is Arcturus, one of the brightest stars in the northern sky, the brightest star in the constellation Boötes, and it sits at a distance of approximately 37 light years from our sun, which means that the light you are drifting through right now, this warm and amber glow surrounding you on all sides, left Arcturus 37 years ago, traveling all this time through the unbroken silence of interstellar space, crossing 37 light years of dark and patient emptiness to arrive here at this moment. And 37 years ago, the world you came from was a different place. The people in your life were younger. Some of the people you love most had not yet arrived in the world. And yet, this light was already on its way, already moving through the dark toward this exact moment, patient and faithful, and completely unaware of the life it would one day illuminate. Arcturus is classified as a red giant star, which means it has moved beyond the main phase of its life, the long, stable period when it burned hydrogen steadily at its core, the way our sun is doing right now, and has expanded outward into something larger and cooler and more diffuse, its outer layers swelling to roughly 25 times the diameter of our sun, so that if Arcturus were placed at the center of our solar system, it would extend nearly to the orbit of Mercury, filling the inner solar system with its warm and amber presence. And yet, even at this expanded size, it burns with a surface temperature of only around 4,300 degrees Celsius, cooler than our sun, which is why its light carries that deep orange warmth rather than the white-yellow brightness of younger stars. What makes Arcturus even more quietly extraordinary, even more worthy of the soft wonder that is settling over you right now like a warm and weighted blanket, is the story of where it comes from, because Arcturus does not belong to the same population of stars as our sun, and most of the stars you can see in the Milky Way on a clear night. It belongs, instead, to an older stream of stars, a remnant population from a smaller galaxy that was absorbed and consumed by the Milky Way billions of years ago. So that Arcturus is in a very real sense a visitor, a traveler from another galactic origin, drifting through our galaxy on a different orbital path from most of its neighbors, moving at a speed of approximately 122 kilometers per second relative to our sun, which means that in the deep future, tens of thousands of years from now, Arcturus will have moved so far across the sky that it will no longer be the bright and familiar beacon it is tonight. And future stargazers, if there are any, will look up and find a different arrangement of lights overhead as you hold this image softly in your mind. The ancient amber star drifting through the galaxy on its long and solitary journey, older than most stars in the neighborhood, carrying within its light the memory of a galaxy that no longer exists as a separate thing. You might notice how your own thoughts are beginning to drift in a similar way, loosening from their usual anchors, moving slowly and without particular direction through the warm and darkening space of your own mind. And your breathing is very slow now, and very even, and the weight of your body against the surface beneath you is complete and total and deeply reassuring. And the stars around you burn on in their patient and ancient way, each one a sun, each one a story, each one sending its light outward across the years with a generosity that expects nothing in return, simply giving, simply glowing, simply continuing in the vast and velvet dark. You are drifting further now, further than you have ever drifted before in this gentle and unhurried journey through the dark. And the stars around you have shifted in their arrangement, the way the view from a slow-moving train shifts, gradually and almost imperceptibly, each familiar landmark giving way to something new and equally beautiful. And the amber warmth of Arcturus has faded behind you into the general softness of the stellar background, becoming one point of light among many. And ahead of you now, grouped together in a way that feels almost intimate by the vast standards of interstellar space, a small and luminous cluster of stars, glows with a cool and silver blue light that is gentle and diffuse, and somehow reminiscent of moonlight reflected on still water. The kind of light that invites stillness, that invites you to stop and simply look and breathe, and allow the beauty of it to move through you without grasping at it, without needing to hold it or explain it, simply receiving it the way you receive the feeling of cool air on your face on a quiet evening, gratefully and without effort. This is the Pleiades, known across cultures and centuries as the Seven Sisters, one of the most recognized and most beloved star clusters in the entire night sky, a group of hot young blue-white stars that formed together from the same vast cloud of gas and dust approximately 100 million years ago, when the world you came from was ruled by enormous creatures that moved slowly across warm and shallow seas and dense prehistoric forests. And these stars have been traveling together through the galaxy ever since, bound by their shared origin and their mutual gravitational pull, drifting as a group through the dark, the way a small and peaceful community moves through time together, each member distinct and individual, and yet connected to the others by something deep and original and impossible to fully sever. The Pleiades sit at a distance of approximately 440 light years from our sun. And this distance, this 440-year journey of light, is one of the most quietly moving facts in all of astronomy when you allow yourself to truly rest inside it, because it means that the light reaching your eyes from the Pleiades on any clear night left those stars in the early 17th century, at a time when the modern world, as you know, did not yet exist, when there were no electric lights and no engines and no recorded music and no way of knowing what the centuries ahead would bring. And yet, that light was already on its way, already crossing the dark with its steady and faithful pace, carrying within it the image of those 7 silver stars as they appeared in an era of human history that now feels almost mythological in its distance and its difference from the present moment. There are actually many more than 7 stars in the Pleiades cluster, with astronomers having identified over 1,000 members in total. But only 6 or 7 are typically visible to the naked eye under clear dark skies, and the mythology of the missing 7th sister appears in cultures as geographically distant as ancient Greece, Aboriginal Australia, and the indigenous peoples of the Americas, each culture independently noticing that one of the sisters seems to be absent or hidden, a coincidence of perception so widespread and so persistent across human history that it speaks to something deep in the human relationship with these particular stars, some ancient and instinctive sense of recognition that has been passed down through generations of people who looked up at the same small cluster of lights and felt, without being able to fully explain why, that they were looking at something that mattered. The Pleiades cluster as a whole is surrounded by a faint and wispy nebulosity, a soft veil of interstellar dust and gas that the cluster is currently drifting through on its journey across the galaxy. And this dust catches and scatters the blue light of the hot young stars within it, creating a faint and luminous haze that surrounds the cluster like a soft and gossamer breath visible through a telescope as one of the most beautiful sights in the night sky. And as you picture that image now, those 7 silver sisters wrapped in their soft blue veil, drifting together through the dark 440 light years away, their light still traveling toward you across all that distance and all those centuries, you might feel your own body growing softer and more still, your breath arriving and departing with less and less effort, your mind releasing the last of its daytime textures and settling into the smooth and featureless quiet of approaching sleep. And the stars continue to burn around you, patient and silver and endlessly generous, asking nothing, offering everything, filling the dark with their slow and ancient light. You are drifting deeper now, deeper than the familiar neighborhood of nearby stars, deeper than the silver cluster of the Pleiades, and the amber warmth of Arcturus, and the cool blue brilliance of Sirius, drifting outward through the Orion arm of the Milky Way with the same effortless and weightless ease that your body is settling into right now. That complete and total releasing of every muscle, every held breath, every small remaining tension, and the dark around you is rich and full and alive in the quietest possible way, not empty, but populated with the faint and scattered light of thousands of stars at various distances, each one a point of warmth in the vast and patient darkness. And ahead of you, something extraordinary is beginning to resolve itself out of the background glow of the galaxy. Not a single star or a tight cluster, but something far more diffuse and far more beautiful. A great, softly luminous cloud of gas and dust that spreads across the dark like a breath exhaled on a cold night, delicate and wispy at its edges, and growing gradually brighter and more complex toward its heart, glowing with colors that exist at the very edge of what the human eye can perceive, soft greens and rose pinks, and the faintest traces of violet, a vast and gentle radiance that seems less like a physical thing and more like a feeling given form. And this is the Orion Nebula, one of the most studied and most quietly magnificent objects in the entire night sky. The Orion Nebula sits at a distance of approximately 1,340 light years from our sun, which means that the light you are drifting through right now, this soft and rose-tinted glow surrounding you on all sides, left this nebula approximately 1,340 years ago, at a time in human history when the great medieval cathedrals had not yet been built, when the written records of many civilizations were still young, when the world was quieter and darker at night, and the sky above it was filled with a brilliance that most people today have never truly seen. And yet, even then, even in that distant and different era, this light was already traveling toward the small blue world where you are resting right now, crossing the dark year by year and century by century, with a patience that makes every human timeline feel very small and very brief, and somehow very precious. The Orion Nebula is what astronomers call a stellar nursery, which is to say, it is a place where new stars are being born, where the slow gravitational collapse of enormous clouds of hydrogen gas is creating. Right now, as you listen, new suns that will one day warm their own systems of planets. And the process of star formation is one of the most unhurried and serene processes in the entire universe, playing out not over years or centuries, but over millions of years, the gas cloud drawing inward with a gentleness so gradual that it is completely imperceptible from moment to moment, a slow and patient gathering of matter that will eventually produce enough heat and pressure at its core to ignite the nuclear fusion that defines a star. A process so vast and so unhurried that it makes the pace of this calming narration, the slow drift of your breath, the gradual deepening of your rest, feel almost quick by comparison. And that thought itself is deeply soothing. The knowledge that the universe operates on timescales so immense that your own life, with all its apparent urgency, is by cosmic standards a single soft and instantaneous note within the Orion Nebula. Astronomers have identified a tight grouping of 4 very young and very hot stars known as the trapezium, whose powerful ultraviolet radiation is responsible for illuminating the surrounding gas cloud, causing it to glow with that soft and rose-tinted light. And these 4 stars, burning bright and blue-white at the heart of the nebula, are estimated to be only a few 100,000 years old, which in stellar terms makes them newborns, infants in the long and patient life of the cosmos. And yet, even these young stars have already been burning for longer than our own species has existed on Earth, a reminder of how ancient and how slow and how magnificently indifferent to human timescales the universe truly is, and how restful it is to be held within something so much larger and so much more patient than anything the day-to-day world can offer. And your breath is very slow now, very easy, and the soft rose light of the nebula is all around you, warm and diffuse and gentle, and you are drifting, always drifting, further and further into the deep and soothing dark. You are leaving the soft rose glow of the Orion Nebula behind you now, that great and patient cradle of newborn stars fading gently into the background of the galaxy. The way a memory of warmth fades when you move from a sunlit room into the cool and quiet of a corridor. Not unpleasant, not abrupt, simply a natural transition from one kind of beauty to another. And as you drift further outward and upward in your imagination, something extraordinary begins to happen to your sense of scale, because the individual stars that have been your landmarks until now, Proxima Centauri and Sirius and Arcturus, and the Pleiades and the glowing heart of the Orion Nebula, all begin to recede into a larger pattern, the way the details of a painting recede when you step back from it, giving way to the composition as a whole. And what you are seeing now, spread out around you in every direction with a breathtaking and unhurried magnificence, is the full structure of the Milky Way galaxy, your home, the vast and slowly turning spiral of stars and gas and dust and dark matter that contains within it every sun you have ever looked up at, every world you have ever imagined, every story you have ever told yourself on a quiet night when the sky was clear and the world was still. The Milky Way is approximately 100,000 light years in diameter, which means that a beam of light traveling at its constant and faithful pace of nearly 300,000 kilometers per second would take 100,000 years to cross from one edge of the galaxy to the other. 100,000 years of uninterrupted travel through the dark. And the number is so large that the mind does not attempt to hold it, but simply releases it. The way the body releases its tension when sleep finally arrives, letting the enormity of it dissolve into a feeling rather than a figure. A feeling of vastness, of patience, of something so much larger and so much more enduring than anything the waking world has ever asked you to consider. Our sun, your sun, the warm and steady star at the center of your solar system, sits roughly 26,000 light years from the galactic center, which places it in one of the Milky Way's spiral arms, the Orion Arm, a region of the galaxy that is neither at the crowded and energetic heart nor at the sparse and distant outer edges, but somewhere in the comfortable and quiet middle. And the sun completes one full orbit around the center of the galaxy, approximately every 225 million years, a period that astronomers sometimes call a cosmic year. And in the entire history of the Earth, our world has completed only about 20 of these vast and unhurried circuits, drifting around the galactic center with the same slow and patient grace with which the planets drift around the sun. Everything turning, everything orbiting, everything held in its place by the same ancient and reliable force of gravity that is holding you right now, pressing you gently into your bed, keeping you still and grounded and safe. The spiral arms of the Milky Way, those great curving streams of stars and nebulae that give the galaxy its distinctive shape, are not solid structures in the way that the arms of a pinwheel are solid, but rather regions of slightly higher density where stars and gas tend to accumulate as they pass through. The way cars accumulate in a section of motorway where traffic naturally slows, and the stars within these arms are constantly moving through them and beyond them on their own individual orbits, so that the spiral pattern is always shifting and reforming in a slow and continuous process that plays out over millions of years. A cosmic choreography so gradual and so immense that from inside it, drifting here in the quiet of the Orion Arm, it feels like perfect stillness, like the stillness of a very deep and very undisturbed body of water, calm on its surface, calm in its depths, calm all the way down to its most ancient and fundamental layers. And that stillness is the same stillness that is filling you right now, moving into every part of your body with every slow and effortless breath, filling the spaces between your thoughts until the thoughts themselves grow quiet and distant, and finally, gently fade into the soft and soothing dark of the galaxy that has always been your home, turning slowly overhead, patient and vast and endlessly welcoming. You are turning inward now, gently and without any sense of urgency, the way attention turns inward in those last quiet moments before sleep fully arrives, that soft pivoting of awareness away from the outer world and towards something deeper and more still. And the galaxy is spreading itself around you in its full and breathtaking complexity, the spiral arms trailing behind you as you drift toward the center. And the density of stars is increasing With every light year you travel inward, the background glow of the galaxy growing gradually warmer and more golden, the way the light inside a room grows warmer as you move toward the hearth at its center. And there is nothing threatening in this increasing brightness, nothing sharp or sudden, only a slow and beautiful deepening of the light, a gradual enriching of the darkness with more and more points of warmth, until the sky in every direction is filled with a soft and luminous abundance that feels less like looking at individual stars and more like being gently immersed in a vast and golden atmosphere, warm and diffuse and completely surrounding. The way the feeling of deep rest is completely surrounding when the body finally allows itself to stop holding on. The center of the Milky Way sits approximately 26,000 light years from where your sun rests in the quiet of the Orion arm, and the light from the galactic center that reaches the Earth tonight has been traveling for 26,000 years, setting out on its journey at a time when human beings were living in small and scattered communities across the world, when the great ice sheets of the last glacial maximum were only just beginning their long, slow retreat, when the night sky was observed by people who had no telescopes and no written language, but who looked upward with the same instinctive wonder and the same deep need to understand their place in the cosmos that has always been one of the most quietly beautiful things about being human. As you drift closer to the galactic center, the stars around you are becoming more numerous and more tightly packed, the distances between them shrinking from the enormous light-year gaps of the outer galaxy to something smaller and more intimate. And in the innermost regions of the galaxy, stars are separated not by light years, but by light weeks and light days, a density of suns so extraordinary that a planet orbiting one of those inner stars would have a night sky blazing with hundreds of stars bright enough to cast shadows. A sky so full of light that true darkness would be almost unknown. And yet even there, even in that crowded and luminous heart, the silence of space would be absolute, because space carries no sound, and all that starlight, all that blazing abundance would fall on a world of complete and perfect quiet. At the very center of the Milky Way, at the heart of all that light and density, there sits something that cannot be seen directly, but whose presence is felt by everything around it. A supermassive black hole known as Sagittarius A, pronounced Sagittarius A star, with a mass approximately 4 million times greater than our sun. 4 million solar masses compressed into a region of space smaller than our solar system, a presence so immense and so gravitationally dominant that it anchors the entire galaxy around it the way a single deep and steady breath can anchor the entire body in a moment of stillness, everything orienting toward it, everything organized by its patient and enormous gravity. Sagittarius A is, at this point in cosmic history, what astronomers describe as relatively dormant, which means it is not actively consuming large amounts of material, and therefore not producing the enormous jets of energy that active galactic nuclei in other galaxies sometimes generate. And this dormancy, this quiet, is one of the reasons you are able to drift toward it tonight in this calming narration without any sense of danger or drama, because a dormant black hole is in its own extraordinary way one of the most peaceful things in the universe. An object of unimaginable mass sitting in perfect stillness at the center of a slowly turning galaxy, not consuming, not erupting, simply existing with a patience and a silence that makes every other kind of stillness feel like a pale reflection of the real thing. And as you become aware of its presence now, far ahead of you in the warm and golden dark, you feel not fear, but something closer to the feeling of arriving somewhere you have always been heading, somewhere ancient and quiet and profoundly at rest. And your body responds in kind, growing heavier and more still, your breath slower and more even, your thoughts finally releasing the last of their daytime grip and dissolving into the deep and soothing silence that surrounds you on all sides. You are closer now, closer than any part of this journey has brought you before. And the word closer here carries a meaning that is entirely different from anything the waking world uses it for, because the distances still separating you from Sagittarius A are vast beyond any ordinary reckoning. And yet, compared to where you began tonight, drifting in the warm, familiar neighborhood of your own sun, you are undeniably drawing inward toward the center of everything, toward the still and ancient heart of the galaxy that has been turning slowly around this single enormous presence for longer than the Earth has existed, and the stars around you are dense and warm and numerous now, filling the sky in every direction with a soft and continuous golden light that has no single source, but seems instead to emanate from the galaxy itself, from the accumulated warmth of billions of suns burning in their patient and widely spaced arrangements. And you are moving through this light the way you move through the last layer of wakefulness before sleep, slowly and without resistance, each moment a little softer than the one before, each breath a little quieter, each thought a little more willing to dissolve into the surrounding stillness. Ahead of you now, at the very center of that warm and golden glow, there is a place where the light begins to curve, where the straight and faithful lines along which light has been traveling across the entire universe begin to bend and arc and spiral inward, drawn by a gravity so immense and so patient that even light itself, that most constant and most faithful of travelers, cannot maintain its straight and steady course, but must yield gently and inevitably to the pull of something heavier than any other object in the galaxy. And this curving of light, this gentle bending of everything toward the center, is one of the most beautiful and most quietly extraordinary phenomena in all of physics, predicted by Albert Einstein in his general theory of relativity, and confirmed by observation in the century that followed. And the mathematics of it, the slow and inevitable geometry of curved space-time around an enormous mass, has a kind of elegance that feels less like a scientific equation and more like a piece of very slow and very ancient music, everything following its own necessary path, everything bending in precisely the way the laws of the universe require. Nothing forced, nothing arbitrary, only the deep and patient logic of gravity expressing itself in light. As you drift closer still, you become aware of something that has no equivalent in ordinary human experience, the slowing of time itself, because near a mass as enormous as Sagittarius A, the fabric of space-time is curved so deeply that time does not pass at the same rate it does in the quieter regions of the galaxy. And a clock placed closer to the black hole would tick more slowly than a clock placed further away, not because of any mechanical fault, but because time itself, the fundamental rhythm of the universe, is stretched and softened by the depth of the gravitational field, moving more slowly the closer you approach, like a piece of music gradually decelerating toward its final note, each beat a little longer than the last, each measure a little more spacious, a little more filled with silence between the sounds, and the sensation of this, the felt sense of time gently expanding around you, of each moment becoming slightly roomier and slightly more generous than the one before, is one of the most deeply soothing things you have encountered on this entire journey, because it mirrors exactly what is happening in your own body right now, in the slow and steady deepening of your rest, in the way each breath seems to take a little longer than the last, in the way the silence between your thoughts is growing wider and more comfortable and more inhabited with every passing moment. The event horizon of Sagittarius A, that boundary beyond which nothing, not matter, not light, not information of any kind, can return to the outside universe, lies at a distance of approximately 12 million kilometers from the black hole's center, which is a distance that sounds large by human standards, but is, on the scale of the galaxy around it, extraordinarily small, a single dark and silent point at the center of 100,000 light years of stars and light, and slowly turning spiral arms. And from here, from your drifting vantage point in the warm and golden dark, just outside the reach of that final boundary, the event horizon appears not as a wall or a barrier, but simply as an absence, a place where the light curves away and does not return, a region of perfect and absolute stillness that seems less like an ending and more like the deepest possible form of rest, the universe's own version of the place your body is approaching right now, that threshold between waking and sleeping, where everything releases, where everything finally, completely, and without any reservation at all, lets go. You are here now, as close as this journey will bring you, resting in the warm and extraordinary stillness of the space just outside the event horizon of Sagittarius A. And the word resting has never felt more precise or more completely appropriate than it does in this moment, because everything around you, every particle of dust and every photon of light and every thread of the space-time fabric itself is in a state of such profound and total organization around this single immense and patient presence that the result is not chaos or drama or anything that the human imagination might have once expected from proximity to a black hole, but rather the most complete and the most absolute stillness you have ever experienced. A stillness so deep and so fundamental that it seems to reach into every layer of your being and quiet each one in turn, the way a very deep and very gentle sound can quiet the mind when it is played at exactly the right frequency, resonating not with your thoughts, but with something below your thoughts, something older and quieter, and more essentially, you, than anything the busy surface of the mind ever touches. The black hole does not announce itself with drama or violence from here. Resting just outside the boundary of its deepest influence, you perceive it the way you perceive the presence of a very deep and very still body of water when you stand at its edge in the dark. Not by seeing it clearly, but by feeling the quality of the air around it, the particular heaviness and completeness of the silence it generates, the way all other sounds and movements seem to orient themselves in relation to it without being consumed by it. And Sagittarius A, in its current dormant state, is precisely this: a presence defined not by what it is doing, but by what it simply and profoundly is. 4 million solar masses of pure gravitational patience sitting at the center of the galaxy, it has anchored for billions of years, not consuming, not erupting, simply being with a completeness of being that makes every other form of existence feel slightly provisional by comparison, slightly unfinished, slightly still, in the process of arriving at the stillness that this ancient and enormous object has already fully and permanently achieved. Around you, the stars of the galactic center burn in their dense and luminous arrangement, closer together here than anywhere else in the galaxy, their combined light creating a warm and continuous golden ambient glow that has no shadows and no sharp edges, only a soft and all-encompassing radiance that falls on everything equally and gently. And the light from these innermost stars, some of them orbiting Sagittarius A in tight ellipses that take only a few years to complete, moving at speeds of thousands of kilometers per second around their enormous gravitational anchor, carries within it the particular quality of light that has been shaped and organized by proximity to something immense, a quality that is difficult to name but easy to feel, a certain weight, a certain depth, a certain unhurried and authoritative calm that settles over everything. It touches the way the deepest kind of sleep settles over a body that has finally, completely, and without reservation, surrendered to its own exhaustion. Your breathing now is so slow and so quiet that you are barely aware of it as a separate action. It is simply happening, the way the stars around you are simply burning, the way the galaxy is simply turning, the way the black hole is simply existing. All of it unforced and effortless and completely natural. And your body has grown so heavy and so still against the surface beneath you that the boundary between you and that surface has become unclear. The way the boundary between waking and sleeping has become unclear, and your thoughts, those last few quiet thoughts that have been drifting through the warm and golden dark of your mind, are growing slower now and further apart and less distinct, dissolving at their edges into the surrounding silence, the way the light of individual stars dissolves at the edges of the galactic glow, becoming part of something larger and softer and more continuous than any single point of brightness could be on its own. And you are held here, completely and effortlessly held by gravity and by darkness, and by the ancient and patient presence of the most still thing in the galaxy. And there is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to think, nothing you need to be except exactly what you already are, resting here, breathing slowly, dissolving gently and completely into the deepest and most soothing darkness you have ever known. You are dissolving now, slowly and completely, and without any resistance at all. The way the last trace of color dissolves from the sky long after the sun has set, not with any abruptness or any clear moment of ending, but simply as a continuation of a process that has been happening all along. A gradual and inevitable and deeply welcome fading into something softer and darker and more complete, and the event horizon of Sagittarius A rests behind you now, like the memory of a threshold you have already crossed without noticing. The way sleep crosses from one side of consciousness to the other without ever announcing itself, without any border or checkpoint or moment of declaration. Simply a seamless and continuous deepening of the quiet that was already there, already present, already waiting with the patience of something that has been waiting for 4.5 billion years and is entirely prepared to wait for as long as you need. The light around you has changed in quality now. It is no longer the sharp and individual light of distinct stars or the warm ambient glow of the galactic center, but something more diffuse and more ancient, a soft and uniform luminosity that seems to have no source and no direction, simply present in every part of the surrounding dark, equally and gently, the way the feeling of deep rest is present in every part of a deeply resting body, equally and gently, not located in any single place, but distributed throughout, filling everything, leaving no part untouched, and you are floating within this light, the way a single molecule of water floats within the stillness of a deep and undisturbed lake, completely surrounded, completely supported, completely at home within something so much larger than itself that the distinction between inside and outside has become beautifully meaningless. There is a fact about light that belongs here, in this final and most tender chapter of tonight's relaxing story, and it is this, that the light from the most distant objects in the observable universe, those faint and ancient galaxies at the very edge of what our telescopes can detect, has been traveling toward us for approximately 13.8 billion years, which is the current age of the universe itself, which means that when astronomers observe the most distant light they can observe, they are looking back to a time when the universe was very young and very different and very hot and very small, a time before any stars had formed, before any galaxies had assembled themselves from the cooling gas of the early cosmos, before any of the elements that make up your body had been forged in stellar cores and scattered across space. And that light, ancient beyond any meaningful comprehension, is still arriving, still completing its journey, still crossing the final distances between itself and the small blue world where you are resting tonight, patient and faithful and completely unhurried after 13.8 billion years of travel. And there is no more soothing fact in the entire universe than this one, that the oldest light in existence is still gently arriving, still quietly completing what it began before the earth existed, still moving at the same steady and faithful pace it has always moved at, nothing rushing, nothing ending, simply continuing, the way your breath is simply continuing, the way the stars are simply continuing, the way the slow and ancient turning of the galaxy will continue long after this night has deepened into morning, and the morning has deepened into another day. You do not need to hold any of this tonight. You do not need to remember the light years, or the star names, or the distances, or the timescales. All of that knowledge can rest now, can settle into the quiet of your sleeping mind, like sediment settling to the bottom of a still and undisturbed pool. And what remains when it has settled? What remains when everything else has grown quiet and dark and still is simply this, the feeling of being held inside something immeasurably vast and immeasurably patient, something that was here before you arrived and will be here long after, something that has no urgency and no judgment and no expectation, only the endless and generous and completely unconditional stillness of the universe at rest. And you are part of that stillness now, completely and finally, and without any reservation at all. Your breath barely a whisper, your body barely a weight, your mind a single soft and fading point of warmth, dissolving gently into the warm and ancient and perfectly welcoming dark. And the stars are burning, and the galaxy is turning, and the light is traveling, and you are sleeping deeply and completely and peacefully sleeping, held in the velvet silence of a universe that has always, in every moment of its 13.8 billion years, been quietly and patiently making its way toward exactly this, toward you, toward this breath, toward this stillness, toward this sleep. You are still here, still resting, still dissolving softly into the deepest and most soothing layers of sleep. And the journey has not ended so much as it has transformed. The way sleep itself transforms the mind from a place of active and busy thought into something quieter and more receptive and more open to the kind of understanding that does not arrive in words, but in feelings, in sensations, in the wordless knowing that comes only when the conscious mind has finally grown still enough to receive it. And what is surrounding you now in this final and most tender phase of tonight's gentle bedtime story is not only the visible light of stars and nebulae and the warm golden glow of the galactic center, but something else entirely, something that cannot be seen or touched or measured directly, but whose presence is felt in everything, in the way the galaxy holds its shape, in the way the stars follow their orbits, in the way the entire structure of the cosmos coheres into something organized and enduring rather than dispersing into randomness. And this invisible something is what physicists call dark matter, one of the most quietly extraordinary mysteries in all of science. A substance or a phenomenon that appears to make up approximately 27% of the total energy content of the universe, present everywhere and in everything, and yet completely transparent to light, neither emitting it, nor absorbing it, nor reflecting it, simply existing in its own patient and invisible way, alongside all the luminous matter you have been drifting through on this long and soothing journey. Dark matter was first proposed not because anyone detected it directly, but because of what the universe was doing without it. Because galaxies were rotating in ways that the visible matter alone could not explain. Their outer edges spinning at speeds that should, according to the laws of gravity applied only to what could be seen, have flung them apart long ago. And yet they held together, spinning steadily and maintaining their shapes across billions of years, which meant that something unseen must be providing the additional gravitational scaffolding to hold them in place. A vast and invisible halo of matter surrounding every galaxy like a gentle and enormous embrace, not interacting with light, not interfering with the stars and planets within it, simply being present with its quiet and essential gravity, holding everything together the way the deepest and most reliable kind of care holds things together, not through any visible action, but through a constant and steady and completely unconditional presence. As you rest here in the dark, you are surrounded by dark matter just as you have always been surrounded by it. On every night of your life, in every room you have ever slept in every landscape you have ever moved through, because dark matter permeates the entire universe, including the space immediately around your planet and your solar system and your galaxy, passing through walls and atmospheres, and even through your own body without leaving any trace you could ever feel or detect. And yet, without it, the galaxy you live in would not exist in its current form. The stars would not have gathered into their spiraling arms. The conditions for solar systems and planets and life itself would never have been met. And the fact that something so essential and so ubiquitous is so completely invisible and so entirely unfelt is one of the most softly humbling reminders that the universe is far larger and far stranger and far more generously mysterious than anything the human mind has yet been able to fully encompass, and that the darkness around you right now, the darkness of your room, the darkness of your closed eyes, the darkness of the deep and restful sleep that is drawing you inward with its patient and irresistible gravity, is itself full of presence, full of substance, full of something that holds and supports and sustains even when it cannot be seen or named or fully understood. And your breath moves through that darkness slowly and completely. Your body rests within it, heavily and gratefully, and the universe holds you in its invisible and ancient arms with the same steady and effortless gravity with which it has been holding every star and every galaxy and every sleeping world since the very first moments of its existence. And you are safe, and you are held, and you are dissolving beautifully and completely into the most restful darkness you have ever known. You are drifting outward again now, softly, and without any sense of leaving something behind, because everything you have visited on this long and soothing journey, the warm neighborhood of your own sun, the silver cluster of the Pleiades, the rose-tinted cradle of the Orion Nebula, the dense and golden heart of the galaxy, the invisible embrace of dark matter, all of it remains with you the way the memory of a very deep and very peaceful sleep remains with you upon waking, not as a precise and detailed account, but as a feeling, a warmth, a sense of having been somewhere profoundly restful and profoundly safe. And as you drift further outward now, beyond the boundaries of the Milky Way, and into the vast and largely empty spaces that separate our galaxy from its neighbors, you begin to become aware of something that has no equivalent in ordinary human experience, something so large and so completely devoid of any content that the word empty does not adequately describe it, because empty suggests a container waiting to be filled, a room with the furniture removed, a sky before the stars appear. But what you are drifting into now is something beyond emptiness in that ordinary sense, something that has never been full, that has existed in its current state of spaciousness since the earliest epochs of cosmic structure formation. And this is what cosmologists call a cosmic void, one of the enormous regions of space that lie between the great filaments and walls and clusters of galaxies that make up the large-scale structure of the universe. The universe, on its very largest scales, is not distributed evenly, but arranged in a structure that astronomers sometimes compare to a cosmic web, a vast three-dimensional lattice of filaments made of dark matter and galaxies and gas that stretches across billions of light years, with the galaxies themselves clustered along these filaments like dewdrops along a spider's thread, and between the filaments, occupying the spaces enclosed by the web structure, are the voids, regions of space that can span anywhere from 100 to several 100 million light years in diameter, containing almost no galaxies and almost no visible matter of any kind, just an extraordinary and profound and almost incomprehensible emptiness that has been quietly present in the fabric of the universe for billions of years, holding its shape and its silence while everything else around it slowly evolved and changed and complexified. The Pleiades void, one of the largest known cosmic voids, spans approximately 330 million light years in diameter, a region of space so empty that if our own Milky Way were positioned at its center, the night sky, as seen from any planet within it, would be almost entirely dark, with only the faintest and most distant smudges of light visible at the very edges of what even the most powerful telescope could detect, a sky so empty of nearby stars and galaxies that the darkness would be nearly absolute, nearly perfect, nearly indistinguishable from the darkness behind your own closed eyes right now, that warm and complete and velvet darkness that is the most familiar and the most welcoming landscape your mind knows, the landscape it returns to every single night with a faithfulness and a gratitude that it rarely thinks to articulate, but that your body understands completely in the heaviness of its limbs and the slowness of its breath and the total and unconditional surrender of every muscle to the surface beneath it. There is a particular quality to the silence of a cosmic void that has no parallel anywhere else in the universe, because even in the emptiest regions of interstellar space, there are occasional atoms drifting past, occasional photons of light completing their ancient journeys, occasional wisps of gas left over from the formation of nearby stars. But in the deepest heart of a cosmic void, even these traces are almost entirely absent, and the result is a silence so complete and so fundamental that it feels less like the absence of sound and more like the presence of something ancient and essential that has no name in any human language, something that the universe has been quietly preserving in these vast and empty spaces since before the first star ever ignited. And as you float within that silence now, carried gently into it by the slow current of this calming narration, you find that your own mind is producing something very similar, a silence that is growing in the spaces between your thoughts, expanding gently with every breath, until it is no longer the spaces between the thoughts that define the experience, but the silence itself, vast and warm and completely welcoming, the cosmic void and the sleeping mind reflecting each other perfectly across an unimaginable distance, both dark, both still, both full of a peace that needs nothing added to it, nothing changed, nothing at all, except the soft and continuous permission to remain exactly as they are. You are at the very edge of everything now, at the outermost boundary of what light has had time to cross since the universe began. And the journey that started on a quiet night in a warm and familiar room has brought you here to the most distant and the most ancient and the most softly extraordinary place that any mind, sleeping or waking, can ever travel to. And the remarkable thing, the thing that makes this final chapter of tonight's relaxing sleep story so deeply and so completely soothing, is that the edge of the observable universe is not a wall or a barrier or a place of endings, but simply the furthest point from which light has yet had time to reach us, a horizon that moves and expands with the expansion of the universe itself, carried outward at every moment by the same cosmic breath that has been expanding space in every direction since the very first instant of existence. And beyond that horizon, there is almost certainly more universe, perhaps infinitely more, continuing in the same patient and unhurried way, filled with the same stars and galaxies and voids and dark matter and ancient light, simply too far away for its light to have reached us yet, which means that the observable universe is not the whole of everything, but simply the portion of everything that has had time to introduce itself, and the rest is waiting quietly and without impatience in the dark beyond the edge of what we can see, permeating every corner of the observable universe, present in every region of space, including the room where you are lying right now, is a faint and ancient warmth that physicists call the cosmic microwave background radiation, the oldest light in the universe, the remnant glow of a time approximately 380,000 years after the Big Bang, when the universe had cooled just enough for the first atoms to form, and for light to travel freely through space for the very first time. And that light, that first released and freely traveling light, has been moving outward through the expanding universe ever since, cooling and stretching as space itself expanded, shifting from the bright and energetic light of a very hot young universe into the faint and microwave frequency warmth that now fills all of space equally, and in every direction, a perfectly uniform and perfectly gentle presence that exists everywhere simultaneously, in the space between galaxies, and in the space between atoms, and in the space between the molecules of the air you are breathing right now, so softly and so evenly distributed across the whole of the cosmos, that it has a temperature of only 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, the coldest and the quietest, and the most evenly spread warmth that exists anywhere in the universe. A warmth so ancient and so fundamental that it is less like a temperature and more like a memory, the universe's own memory of its earliest and most formative moment, still present, still gently radiating, still filling everything with its patient and almost imperceptible embrace. When you breathe in right now, slowly and completely, the air entering your lungs is passing through a universe that is filled from edge to edge with this ancient and gentle light, a universe that is approximately 13.8 billion years old and still expanding, still cooling, still evolving in its slow and majestic way. And you are part of that evolution, a temporary and precious arrangement of atoms that were forged in stars and gathered by gravity and organized by the same laws of physics that govern the motion of galaxies and the bending of light around black holes and the slow expansion of space itself. And the breath you are taking right now is the universe breathing. The awareness listening to these words is the universe listening. The sleep that is drawing you so gently and so completely inward is the universe resting, finding in you one of the countless quiet places where it folds back on itself and becomes still and warm and deeply, completely peaceful. And there is nothing more you need to do tonight, nothing more you need to understand or remember or hold. You can release it all now, the light years and the star names and the distances and the ancient glows and the dormant black holes and the invisible dark matter and the cosmic voids and the oldest light. All of it can dissolve now into the simple and perfect darkness of your sleeping mind. And what remains, what will always remain, is this: the soft and steady rhythm of your breath, the warmth of the surface beneath you, the silence of the room around you, and somewhere far above, through the ceiling and the atmosphere and the vast and velvet dark of space, the stars burning quietly in their ancient and patient arrangements, sending their light toward you across the years, as they always have, as they always will. And you are sleeping now, gently and completely, and without any reservation at all, held in the oldest and the gentlest and the most enduring darkness there is.